everyone. My name is Lisa Myers, and I am the Director of Fellowship Kids here at Fellowship Community Church. Joanne Sharp, who is the Director of Women's Ministries here, and I came together a couple weeks ago and had this idea that we wanted to put a panel together to talk to moms of our church, parents, but mostly moms today, just about what life looks like in August 2020. When we're about to enter the fall. And we all know kind of as moms what that means. If there are school-age children, you might be thinking, what are we gonna do? School looks very different this year, and that could cause some stress and anxiety. If you're a mom with a preschooler, you might be thinking, I don't have any outlets. I'm sort of cut off from my friends. There is no library story time. There are no preschool. Maybe there are, and you're wondering if you should even send your child. So again, so many questions. I think we're all feeling those questions as a result of these 5-6 months we've been dealing with COVID. So we've talked about not being able to get a steady quiet time going. The outlets for out of the house connections have been limited for moms. Their schedules have been turned upside down. All these kinds of things and decisions right now are causing anxiety. So I wanted to invite Kim and Gail here to speak into some of that. I'm going to tell you who they are, and I'm going to let them add it here because they do have some wonderful thoughts. And we're going to try to center our focus on practical ideas, but also on the Lord, wanting to bring Jesus into every decision we make and our daily lives and bring that stress and anxiety to Him. So Kim is a clinical therapist. She has a specialty with children and family, and she's been working in this field for about 15 years. She works now in the Center for Counseling and Education in Medford. Kim McDonald. And then Gail Santa Maria is a clinical social worker who also specializes with children. She works with kids in trauma, with attachment issues, and with childhood anxiety and depression. And she's been working in this field for about 17 years. So Kim, I'm going to ask you to go first and share the things that you're thinking and ideas for moms.
Sure. Thanks, Lisa. I loved our time with the women last week, and I'm so excited to meet with you and Gail. I always like working with Gail, so this is so exciting to be together again. Well, I just wanted to quickly start out with a verse, because when I was praying about this, we have a huge season, like you said, the school season coming upon us, and Isaiah 43:2 came to my heart. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned, and the flames will not set you ablaze. And I love how the Lord tells us that it's not that we're not going to go through it, but it's that He's going to be right there with us. You know, the promise is that we're not going to be stuck here, and we're not going to be alone here. So kind of just to hold on to that, those two promises as we enter this new school year season. But I wanted to talk about two aspects for moms that I hope will be a help in terms of managing and reducing anxiety. The first is recognizing how we respond to anxiety. The second is ways to reduce it. So first, as women, we have these patterned ways of responding to anxiety, ways of handling it, ways of managing it. And a lot of that is we learned from our first families, sometimes around birth order, and sometimes just around what happened in our families or how our families functioned and how they communicated. Studies have shown us that anxiety is one of the most contagious emotions, that when one person has it, it spreads like wildfire. And that's the same too in our families too. When one person is struggling with anxiety, it is going to spread a lot of time to our children too, because we're co-regulators with our children. If we can't emotionally regulate, they're unable to emotionally regulate. So in saying that, I love to encourage moms just to take a minute and say the phrase, I sound like my mother, and just sit in that silence. What is the first feeling that they feel? Was it positive? Was it negative? Really focus on identifying how does that impact me when I say that phrase. And to think again, 20 years, 10 years from now, when you think of your son or your daughter talking to a friend, when they say the phrase, oh, I sound like my mom, I know what to do because of my mom. Think of that. That's what kind of like we're aiming for. But I encourage moms because because we're aiming that for our children, but also for us too. Because being a good mom isn't about controlling our child's behavior. It's really about us, how we respond, our thoughts, our emotions, because our children are his. They are God's, he entrusted them to us, but we are the ones that Jesus is also working in to mold and to shape. So first, two types of responders. Number one, the overfunctioner. Think Martha in Luke 10. Jesus came to the house. What does Martha do? I got to clean, I got to cook, I got to prepare, I got to do this. Overfunctioners respond to anxiety by taking over, moving quickly. They give advice. They kind of micromanage. They look really tough, really put together. They're great delegators, and they're really good at running the show. However, doing is their armor. And a lot of this information I got from Dr. Brene Brown, and I would encourage anybody to look up her work and her books. But she talks about the overfunctioner being in charge is their armor. I will not fear because I will do. I don't need help. I'm the one that helps. And somewhere along the way, the overfunctioner learned to shut away our feelings and overfunction in order to handle the fear and anxiety. So I like to think of it this way. The overfunctioner is the person on the plane that wants to put the oxygen mask on everybody else before they put it on themselves. But I encourage moms and anybody who responds to overfunctioning, what are you trying not to feel? What is that feeling that you're running away? Is it that feeling of helplessness, of powerlessness? You're running away from some type of feeling and doing in order to protect yourself and to keep going and to manage it. So number one, are you an overfunctioner? Number two, an underfunctioner. Think Hagar in Genesis 16, 7 through 13. And this has become over the years one of my really favorite stories. But Hagar was completely, I don't want to say helpless, but in some ways a lot of decisions were made for her. The decision to be with Abraham, to get pregnant, all of that stuff wasn't in her control. The underfunctioner basically focuses on everything they cannot control and runs away from what is happening, the fear and anxiety. They look fragile, appear irresponsible, seems like they can barely hold it together, and they may seem less confident, but running away and disengaging is the armor of the underfunctioner. I don't need help. I don't help, I need help. Oftentimes they'll use worst case scenario language. So asking yourself in times of anxiety, am I an overfunctioner or, am I an underfunctioner? And being honest with yourself. Once you identify and be really, truly honest with yourself, you're able to help yourself. So very quickly, 5 ways to reduce anxiety. Number one, resetting at the feet of Jesus. And when I say that, like Mary and Martha, your first response may be, oh, I know, I need to have quiet time. I need to do that. Yes, but knowing and doing, they're two different things. Knowing is just gaining basic information. Anybody can do that, but doing requires an active plan, active steps. And one of the wonderful things that I loved hearing from the women the other night was breath prayers, simply saying out loud, Lord, help me. I'm going to trust in the Lord with all my heart. Simple, 2-3 seconds, but breath prayers where you're stopping and you're connecting with the Lord. You're resetting. You're not doing, you're not running, you're just resetting at the feet of Jesus. So number one would be resetting. Number two, practicing peace, practicing calm. Practicing peace is just like learning a new skill, learning a new language, learning to ride a bike. It takes practice. It takes intention, making it a priority. So how do we practice peace? The first thing that I would encourage is study it in the Bible. Learn everything that you can about peace. Study. Practical ways, be slow to speak. Be slow to react. Practice responding, really, and not reacting, especially to our children. The most effective people are calm people. When Jesus was in the crowds talking to them, he wasn't pumping up the crowds, rallying them, making sure everyone had a place to sit or everyone's okay. The Bible tells us he was with the crowds, and he just started speaking into the need, speaking to the heart, so mirroring what we see Jesus do, practicing peace. Number 3, giving yourself permission to feel your feelings. I love the story when it said that Jesus wept when Lazarus died. He allowed himself to feel his feelings. It didn't say that Jesus said, I need to be strong for everyone. I need to keep everyone together. I need to make sure this and this and this is done. He just let himself feel what he felt. And I think that is so important. Seeing that Jesus did that is a great example for us to feel like, I am feeling anxious. I'm over-functioning right now. I feel fearful. I'm under-functioning right now. Really identifying how you feel and being honest with that. Number 4, moving your body. And I know I'm blowing through these really quick, but neurobiologically, our bodies store trauma. They store anxiety. They store fear. Anybody who has ever experienced a panic attack or is diagnosed with PTSD knows what it's like when your body basically takes over your mind and emotions. What we can do to help that is just simply move your body. Just take a walk, ride a bike, find a 10-minute YouTube video that you can just move your arms, move your legs. Garden has become one of my personal favorites to handle anxiety. I just have taken up gardening, and it's been so life-giving. Actively stretching too. If anything is too strange, just actively stretch, move your neck, relax your jaw. We hold a lot of tension in our face, our eyebrows, just making it very, being very intentional to relax and move your body, because moving your body provides a psychological distance really from your worries. And the last thing is stay connected to others. Dr. Laura Santos is a professor at Yale University, and she taught this course called The Science of Well-Being, which they recorded it as the most popular course ever given at Yale. And she talks about staying socially connected makes you actually more likely to survive a fatal illness. And this is non-religious, non-spiritual, evidence-based studies showing that if you stay connected with other people, it is better for your heart, better for your mind, better for your well-being. So all of that really quick as a summary. Number 1, reset daily at the feet of Jesus. Number 2, practice peace. 3, feel your feelings. 4, move your body. And 5, stay connected. And I just want to close with this, because I read recently, what happens if worries just keep coming into my mind? They just keep coming. I keep thinking about it. And Dr. Brene Brown talks about there's a difference between having a thought and buying into a thought. Having a thought, okay, that entered, what is going to happen to my kids in the school year? You can choose not to go down that rabbit trail, thinking of what if, what if, what if. You're not going to buy into that worry. You are going to have that thought, okay, how am I responding? Reset at the feet of Jesus and start over again. So my hope is that for all moms, including myself, that 10 years from now, when my child says, I sound like my mother, it will be the words of Jesus and the presence of the Holy Spirit that they remember hearing.
Thank you, Kim. That's great. Great words. I've said this before, but I love the stay connected part. For me, that's huge. And I'm sure for others it is too. We'll look to get connected and stay connected this fall while we're walking together through this part of our journey. Gail, love to hear from you.
That was wonderful, Kim. And I love how we pair up so well. I know that's always been a God thing. And just because you were reminding me as you were speaking of something, how important it is for us as parents to kind of really take care of ourselves and regulate ourselves, because our kids often are feeding off of what we are putting out, right? And I see that in the work that I do with children and families all the time. For instance, if you think about a kid, say one of our kids is running and they fall down and scrape their knees. One of the first things they do is look to you and see your reaction. And a lot of times that sets the tone for how they react. So I'm kind of like a little bit of an overreactor, and I've learned as a therapist, I kind of want to keep a more neutral, compassionate, caring face and be a little less reactive, because they will kind of feed off of that. I took my daughter to the urgent care the other day for a broken toe, and it was just an unusual experience. You know, you're getting your temperature checked multiple times. It's this stark layout of the waiting room. It is just feels uncomfortable. And they're asking you all the questions. Have you been sick? Have you had a fever? Have you, you know, and you're just like, no, I don't know. Like, how do I answer this? And so we go upstairs, we sit down, and after we got through everything, we were just waiting. I said to her, well, that was a lot. Like, how did you experience that? How did you seem so calm right now? She's like, well, you're calm. So and she's 9, so she can verbalize that. But I said, so what do you notice? What do you notice in me being calm? And she says, I see your face. I look at your face. So she kind of has summed up something that I always kind of knew, that they kind of look to us, right? If things will be okay or not. So kind of taking care of yourself, right? As a mom, as the caregiver, and regulating yourself, getting to that place of peace is so powerful. So that kind of sets the tone for kind of what, you know, we're talking about in the work that I also do. So anxiety is often triggered by uncertainty. It's triggered by not being able to guarantee something. It might be not being able to guarantee fully safety, right? We live in a world that there's just uncertainty, and you walk into Target and you're reminded that we're in an uncertain world with the masks on, right? You're not guaranteeing that things were going to go okay, that something's going to be comfortable. When I do anxiety with work with kids, that is often the root, the very bottom of that anxiety piece, is there's something that we can't guarantee on the other side. It starts with like a what if thought. What if it goes wrong? What if I get yelled at? What if I can't? And the key words many times is what if I can't handle it? Mm. So that uncertainty, that discomfort, that a lot of times children are kind of, I don't know how to handle this feeling. So therefore it must be dangerous. It must not be okay. It must not be good. So just know that that is one piece of an anxiety root. There is also the pieces that are also triggered by things like an overwhelm, a sensory overwhelm. So I'm finding that a lot in the work that I do, that the kids are often a little overwhelmed, or a lot overwhelmed by things kind of coming at them. And especially this day and age, sensory experiences like sounds, visual cues, smells. And we're just kind of facing things that are new to all of us. And so it kind of makes sense that there's sensory pieces that are also included in a trigger of anxiety. If you think about going on a ride, right? I use this with kids a lot lately, the amusement parks. Think about those spinny rides that, you know, like I used to love. I love the one where you like slide up on your back and your feet aren't touching the ground and you're like sticking to the wall. And then I can't handle that now. But you come off of that and you're trying to reorient yourself. So this is what reminds me of anxiety. It's like your brain and body are swirling, and you just can't grasp the internal control. So I always remind myself, what's one of the first things we do? It's like we get off, we need to plant our feet on the ground. We need to focus on something so that everything kind of stops spinning. And we just kind of reset. So it's like a grounding experience. And I always think of anxiety in that way. It's just an overwhelm swirling all around us in chaos, internal chaos. And I think about that need sometimes to plant ourselves, even literally standing and breathing and focusing. Also, overwhelmed by feelings. Feelings can come at you all day long. And this is, you know, as a therapist, Kim, how often some people are not able to stop and say, this caused a feeling and I don't understand it. And sometimes the work that you're doing is trying to understand, okay, a lot of feelings just came at me. I don't know what to do with that. And so you're kind of breaking it down and understanding each experience and saying what feelings came up. Right? So I also think we also live in a world that sometimes says number one, you're fast paced. You don't have a chance sometimes to stop and reflect. But number two, we're kind of like, are we allowing our kids to feel sadness, to feel grief safely and okay? Or are we trying to communicate unknowingly, okay, let's get past this, let's move on, right? And now next thing you know, this child doesn't have an experience that says, well, this was making me sad and I need to feel sad. They're taught that that's bad, right? So going backwards a little bit, I kind of say, what is our grounding point, right? Not only literally standing with our feet planted, taking the breaths, right? But it's also remembering truth. So Philippians 4:8. So I have this because this was in my downstairs. I'm in my daughter's room right now, and I switched out her artwork and put this up here because this is what grounds me sometimes, is remembering what is true and what is right, what is lovely, what is pure, what is excellent, what is admirable, what is praiseworthy. Think about those things, right? So what we know, even in a world of uncertainty, and this is accurate for us adults as much as it is with kids, what can we focus on that is true, that is certain, right? We know God is on his throne. We know God already knows our tomorrow. So even though we are uncertain, he's not. So just knowing that there already is a plan is a very grounding thing. I also look at, from the sensory experience, a very helpful strategy is what is true? What is something we can focus on that's good and admirable, right? Excellent, praiseworthy. A lot of times with kids, when their internal selves are out of control, it's, can we focus on something like, let's look at the flowers. What colors do you see? What do they smell like? It's really interesting from the sensory perspective how helping a child tune into something sensationally is really grounding to them. Does that smell sweet? Like, you can make it playful. Does that smell sweet? Does that smell bitter? Right? What's that taste like? And right away, and I've seen it, like, it's like, you know, like clockwork. Right away, it's like the brain kind of calms down because it's focusing on something right here and right now. Right? So that's a very helpful strategy. I also like something like hanging up kind of a feelings chart, you know, with like a little emoji faces, and saying, you know, what feeling do you think is going on? Is it sadness? You know, is it uncertainty? Is it confusion? You know, just helping children start to identify kind of what is happening inside of them and giving space for that. So I think that pretty much sums up, you know, like kind of focusing on, you know, Philippians 4:8. Also, gratefulness. What are we grateful for? We try to end the day kind of thinking about those things. I acknowledge it was a hard day. There were stresses. What was hard? How did we get through that? How have we gotten through hard times in the past? How has God shown up? Something we didn't know in the time we were stressing, but he did show up, right? What are the things that we've been through that God has brought us through, and where we are now? Those are things that we can reflect on and focus on, that are also very grounding in the world of anxiety. We have some truths, and that is very grounding. And lastly, just really kind of focusing on the negative thoughts that come up, that I can't handle this. Well, we know we can't handle this because we've handled it before, right? We know we can handle this because we got through X, Y, and Z, and look where we are now, right? I know you can handle discomfort. You've handled discomfort in this situation. How'd you do that? Letting the child kind of think about all of those things. That is very helpful as well. Kind of switching from I can't handle it to I can handle it. It reminds me of I can handle all things through Christ who strengthens me. It just kind of reminds me of this whole other mindset of the truth. The negative belief is not truth. Here is the truth, and we want to grasp onto that, and we want to hold on to that. So that pretty much kind of sums up. There's so much to offer, and Kim and I are going to be working on a little, cheat sheet of tips and tricks for handling like anxious moments. So I don't want to spend a lot of time because some things will work for some kids, and sometimes they won't work every day. Like, there's just so many variables, but that way, if you have kind of an idea of some things that you can try, you know, at home, you know, you can have that right at your fingertips and say, well, let me try this one now. So we'll work on that, and that we'll put that out, you know, maybe in the next week, hopefully. So that's about it.
Okay, that's great. I'm going to switch our screen here. I like what you're both saying. I hear you saying things like, don't rush past the anxiety or try to push it under the table, but to at least like put it out there, name it. We've been talking about naming the anxiety and taking taking it in and with our kids or with ourselves, taking it to the Lord and saying, speak truth into this anxiety, this particular thing, whether it's confusion or indecision or just a stress or a grief of loss of something, whatever those things are, we're naming it, we're taking it to Jesus. And I think that bottom line, if we could just sum it up, that's what we're doing. And that's what you're encouraging with all these great ideas and tips. Thank you, ladies, so much for being here today. And we'll just say goodbye, and we'll try to post those little tips on our website soon and get those out to women in our church.
All right.
Thank you.
So much. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.